You have no idea how many times your name was silently lifted when no one was watching. When you yourself no longer believed, someone knelt down for you, without asking for anything in return, without seeking recognition, without leaving traces. That someone carried your pain as if it were their own, and you didn't notice. But in the invisible realm, something shifted. In the hidden, a seed was planted. And now you're starting to notice signs you can't quite explain. There are things that didn't come from your own strength. There are doors that opened without your direct effort. There are moments when you should have fallen, but you stood tall. And that wasn't just coincidence, it was an answer. You always thought you were alone, that your voice was lost in the void, that your requests were too small to be heard. But there was a hidden intercession, a voice that did not go silent. And heaven doesn't ignore this kind of prayer. Notice how in recent days, your heart has become more sensitive. You realize something protected you from decisions that could have destroyed you. You felt an inexplicable care in situations that were out of your control. And this didn't come from nowhere. It was the result of a silent plea. What seemed forgotten has been remembered. What seemed closed has been opened. What seemed distant has begun to draw near. And you're starting to realize that it wasn't just good luck. Maybe you'll never find out who stood up for you. Maybe it's someone you can't even imagine, or someone who is no longer here. But what matters is that the answer has arrived, and you are now living the harvest of something that was born out of tears. You didn't notice when everything began to change. It felt like just another ordinary day with the same struggles, the same questions, the same silences. But suddenly something within you began to feel a different weight. It was no longer just your strength supporting your steps. It was as if an invisible wind was pushing you forward. This wind didn't originate from within you. It came from outside, but it touched you deeply. It arose from the cry that was made for your life. And even without your awareness, the heavens kept every word spoken in your favor. Have you ever wondered why you didn't completely crumble when everything seemed to fall apart? Have you ever questioned why certain doors didn't close definitively? Have you thought about how you managed to breathe even amidst so many wounds? It was because someone was on their knees for you. There are no wasted prayers. The words spoken in secret didn't vanish into thin air. They transformed into deep roots that now support the tree of your survival. And the fruit is starting to appear, even if you still don't understand how. What you feel now is not a coincidence, it's an answer. It's a fulfillment, it's care. You thought you were forgotten, but someone remembered you every day before the heavens. You believed no one cared, but there was a heart that cared enough to bleed in silence. And now you realize you are not here by chance. Every morning you rise, even without desire, there's an extra strength that comes. This strength didn't appear from nowhere. It was unleashed because someone stood in the gap for you. Someone carried the burden that you couldn't bear alone. Perhaps you felt nights when the weight seemed unbearable, and yet, in the final moment, a strange peace took over. That was the echo of intercession. That was the reflection of silent prayer, and even without realizing it, you were protected. How many times have you walked distracted and were spared from something worse? How many times did you nearly give up, but an unexpected memory made you hold on just for one more day? These details weren't random. They were signs that the heavens were responding to that secret cry. You have never been alone, never. Even when you thought everything was lost, there were invisible hands supporting your life. And today you are living proof that hidden prayers have the power to change destinies. You can feel it now. Something is changing inside you. It's not just emotion, it's perception. It's the awareness that something greater is at work beyond your sight. Do you know that sudden relief that comes in the midst of chaos? Do you know that calm that sweeps in inexplicably? It's the result of something you've never seen, yet has always been happening behind the scenes of your story. Someone believed in you when you no longer believed in yourself. Someone upheld your name when you wanted to give up on it. And this secret faith has opened paths that you are now beginning to walk. If this has happened to you, comment, "I needed to hear this." Because admitting that it wasn't your strength, but an invisible grace, is an act of humility and also of freedom. How many times have you questioned, does God still hear me? And maybe the answer has never come directly, but today you realize He heard the intercession made on your behalf, and that silent care has brought you to this point. You don't know when the miracle began to take shape, maybe years ago, maybe days, but today you stand on the fruits of a prayer that never got lost. And even if you don't know the person who prayed, heaven knows and heaven never forgets. That's why you weren't destroyed. That's why even when hurt, there is still hope. That's why deep down you feel that something greater is calling you forward. What seemed like silence was really a response being shaped. What felt like abandonment was invisible care being poured out. What felt like emptiness was just space being prepared for something new. Now breathe. You can feel that you are in the midst of something greater than you imagined. The air feels lighter because part of the burden is no longer yours. And this exchange was only possible because someone dedicated their life to prayer. Don't be mistaken. There is a purpose in all of this. You have not been forgotten. You were remembered so intensely that even the heavens moved for you. And that memory will continue to pave the way, even on days when you see nothing. You might wonder, but why me? Why would someone pray so much for me? And the answer is both simple and profound, because your life carries a meaning you have yet to realize. And until you do, someone has chosen to bear that burden for you. How many tears have been shed without your knowledge? How many nights have been sacrificed in silent vigil? How many times has someone refrained from asking for themselves, just to ask for you? And now, all of that is blossoming. This blossoming doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds in stages. First, small, noticeable changes. Then greater miracles that you cannot deny. And in every detail you will remember. It wasn't your strength. It was a response from the heavens. Have you ever felt like you've entered places you shouldn't have access to? Have you noticed doors opening without any logic to it? These are marks of intercession. They are traces of invisible care. They are proof that it wasn't luck. It was providence. The most beautiful part is that you may never discover who it was. And maybe you don't need to, because the most important thing is to recognize that the heavens listened, and that listening is already enough to sustain your life from here on out. But think, if there was someone who prayed for you in secret, wouldn't it be time for you to become that someone for another? Just as you were supported, perhaps you are being called to support. Just as your life was remembered, maybe now it's your turn to remember someone else's life before the heavens. This chain never breaks. It only renews. And what you received does not end with you. It expands. It multiplies. Have you ever experienced this? Tell me in the comments. You may have never stopped to think about the weight that a prayer carries. Words cast into silence cross distances that logic cannot explain. They don't get lost in the wind. They don't dissolve into nothingness. They stand before God like seeds waiting for the right time to bloom. And that's what happened to you. Even without realizing it, you became the target of a secret sowing. While you were fighting your own battles, someone was planting love through their prayers for you. You didn't see it or hear it, but you felt the effects. And today, your very breath is proof that those prayers did not fail. Think of all the moments when it seemed impossible to go on. How many times did despair take over your mind, making you think there was no way out? Even so, an inexplicable strength kept you standing. That invisible push was no coincidence. It was the answer to a cry that no one heard, but that heaven never ignored. The secret of intercession is that it touches where you cannot. It enters places you wouldn't have access to on your own. It reaches areas that you could never resolve by your own strength. And suddenly, what seemed insurmountable begins to give way. Have you noticed how certain doors opened at exactly the moment you needed them most? Have you realized how relationships were preserved without any explanation? Have you seen how your life was protected from situations that could have destroyed you? None of this was just coincidence. It was the result of a silent prayer. It's strange, isn't it? You thought you were alone, and now you start to realize you never were. There was a greater care, a watchfulness that you couldn't see but that accompanied you day after day, and the more you reflect, the clearer it becomes. Someone chose to believe in your future when you no longer believed in it yourself. That's the beauty of intercession. It carries you to places your feet couldn't reach alone. It opens paths you didn't know existed. It sustains your soul in nights of darkness. And when the light finally arrives, you understand that you didn't walk out of your own merit, but by grace received. You can try to explain it logically, but deep down you know there's something beyond logic. There's a perceptible presence surrounding you. There's a care that can't be measured. There's a response that can't be explained, only lived. You may never know the name of the person who prayed. It could be someone very close. It could be someone distant, or perhaps someone who is no longer with us, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that your life was remembered before the heavens, and that memory is eternal. That's why even when everything seemed lost, you could still breathe. That's why even in the midst of pain, there was a hidden peace in some corner of your heart. That's why, even without understanding, you manage to keep going. The sky does not ignore hidden tears. The sky does not dismiss prayers made in silence. And now you are a living witness that every word spoken for your life bore fruit that remains. If you've sensed this at any moment in your story, write down below, "I have lived this." This confession has power because it acknowledges that it wasn't your strength but a greater grace that sustained you. Think of how many times you felt on the edge of the abyss, how many times you thought about giving up on everything, and suddenly something small, almost imperceptible, brought hope. A gesture, a word, a glance. These details were responses too. They were reminders that someone was covering you in prayer. You might not know it, but in every critical moment there was an invisible intervention. You may never see the details, but they are there. And if you look closely, you'll notice the marks. The marks of a care that can't be explained, but is real. This realization changes everything, because from the moment you understand that you're not alone, your way of living changes too. You start to see life with more hope. You learn to trust a little more. You recognize that up to this point there has been grace, and that grace won't run out. And the most profound realization is that the secret prayer not only preserved your life, but also prepared your future. What is coming before you is the fruit of what has already been planted. You may not understand it now, but each step you take is a response to something that has already been established in prayer. It's as if you are reaping fruits you did not plant, as if you are traversing paths you did not open, and all of this is because someone believed that you were worth it, that your story still had chapters yet to be written, that your life still carried an unbreakable purpose. You might feel this now, a call to recognize that there is more, that it hasn't ended here, that what you have lived until today was just preparation for what is coming. And if you have made it this far, it is because there was a force supporting every detail. But now the invitation is for something even greater, to become an intercessor as well. Because just as you were remembered, there is someone who needs to be remembered through you. Just as you were sustained, there is someone waiting to be supported by your silent words. And this is the chain that never breaks. The same heaven that answered the prayer you made is ready to respond to the prayers you make for others. The same love that reached you can reach others through you. And thus grace multiplies. Have you thought about this? Have you imagined how many lives can be transformed from your decision to intercede in silence? Have you realized that perhaps your mission is not only to survive but also to sustain? This is bigger than you think. It is deeper than you imagine. And it starts right now. You cannot fathom how many times your name has been lifted in silence. While you were fighting to survive, someone knelt down for you. Without applause, without traces, just faith. That is why you did not fall when everything was crumbling. That is why doors opened when nothing made sense. That is why on nights of pain, an inexplicable peace enveloped you. None of this happened by chance, it was an answer. You always thought you were alone, but someone remembered you in the sky. Someone believed in your life when you no longer believed in it yourself, and every tear shed in secret turned into strength for you to keep going. Look back carefully. Realize how many times you were spared, how many times you should have given up, but you held on. It wasn't luck, it was intercession. Your story was not forgotten. Your life was sustained. Now you are starting to see that this grace doesn't end here. Just as you were remembered, you are called to remember. Just as you were sustained, you can sustain others. This is the invisible cycle that changes destinies. If this touched your heart, comment, "I needed to hear this," and move on to the next video. Continue to recognize what the heavens have already begun to do. Now.